Hello and welcome to another live session here at Graph HQ. We're back with rainwater research, your second favourite topic, isn't it, right?
Yeah, well, apparently so. Yeah, you can see. You keep telling me.
You said you prefer wastewater.
I do.
And you're like, oh, you just dragged me along for rain. I was like, oh, thanks, David. I thought you might be more enthused about this.
Second favourite topic. We'll lead with that.
Anyway, so welcome once again to another live session where we've got David in the hot seat to talk about all things rainwater harvesting. We're going through our main topic, which is all about water neutrality and the issues the UK is facing currently with that new legislation. We'll then look at some fascinating news stories in my new favourite topic, which is
in the news.
Exactly, and then we'll be answering any questions that come in the comments section during today's live session. So if you do have any comments that you want to ask David while you got him here, put them in the comments section and we'll answer them all at the end. David, you missed this last week.
I did.
Cue cards.
Yes, you seem to be very proud of this.
It is.
New
it's
thing
such a
that
cool adjustment. Look at that. Look, you can see on that camera. They're just smart. Like that is just a bit more. It's that 1% better. I mean, you see, it's like when I'm presenting, I'm a celeb, and once Antideck have a bit past it. Although the amount of work they do to their faces, they'll never look past it. I've practiced with my cue cards. I'll be on in this morning in like 3 years' time.
You'll be on. Yep, indeed. Just so you can tap on the desk at the end. I'm waiting to see it.
Just organising. How was your weekend?
Yeah, it was very pleasant. Thank you. Bit of a quiet one. We didn't actually have the rugby on this weekend, so yeah, able to get back with a bit of a routine. So it was good. Thanks. How about you?
Very good. Yeah, very good. It seems like a long distance ago, but yeah.
Well, it's Hump Day now. It's Wednesday. We're halfway through the week.
We are halfway through the week. I think we changed the days. Usually we do these on a Tuesday, and it's like my normal breaking the ice question of how was your weekend was a lot more relevant. But now when it's in the middle of the week, it's like, oh, how's your week been? Because that would be actually a bit more relevant. But anyway, we digress. So as I mentioned at the start of today's session, we'll be just talking about water neutrality, which is a new legislation that's come in from Natural England. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, you're correct.
Which is affecting UK projects going forward, and it's all about new buildings, not being a strain on current water resources and making sure they're water neutral. So, David, run us through it. What is water neutrality?
So you pretty much introduced it quite nicely there. Basically, water neutrality has a goal or an aim set out by Natural England, so we don't have any further impacts on water resources which are existing in place. So if you're looking at a new development, we're very much looking at what was on the site previously. It could have been just a green area. It could have been some sort of urban built-up area. We're looking at kind of like the water usage and demand was at that time. And with the implementation of the new developments, we're having no further demand on what the water consumption was. So, of course, it can be slightly more tricky if it is a brand new site. But if something that you're renovating, it's slightly easier to come in line with those requirements. So that's pretty much what the aim and the goal is. The benefits really, of course, are there's many benefits. I'll try and run through them in a sensible order. The first thing is generally, of course, is how much impact we're having on the environment for the future developments. So we can really look at no longer pulling water from groundwater resources and potentially from rivers. So the equipment and machinery used to pull that water from those sources, treat it to get it to a suitable water standard, that no longer has to happen because local to the area where the development is, we're putting a solution in place to supplement or to reduce the mains water usage at the initial point. So that is really a nice way to look at it. So we can implement solutions local to the developments, the logistical side of things and the manufacturing side of things for producing good quality mains water is reduced massively. We can also look at, of course, the kind of impact with the environments. Don't really want to, you could talk about this for a long period of time, but when we're talking about like leaks and systems that have been in place, it's difficult to measure where water is being wasted. So with the implementation of new technologies to better, which we discussed last time around, new technologies to really ensure that the stuff going forward is in a much better position. We've got generally much better outlook for the future. So water neutrality, just to try and summarize that for you, because you're going to summarize it for me, is going to be really looking at how can we reduce the mains water consumption, the water consumption on a site. We can look at what it is prior, and then we would look at it as what it's going to be post-development, and we are ideally looking at it's going to be less than or equal to what it was prior to the new development being put in place.
Is that how you? Is that you?
If you want to build on this, mate, by all means, go for it.
With a project, because David said off camera, I'm more the expert on this, which I doubt is the case because I've written a few articles for the website about it. But just to prompt you a bit more, so with construction projects, if they were building, say, a new housing development across town, how they have to go about achieving water.
So how is the next topic on the list?
Yeah.
So there's three main ways we can look at for how we can reduce our mains water or the water consumption on a particular development. This is generally brought up into three tiers. The first one is to try and reduce the amounts that we're using, which is kind of the obvious one of the three. So this is, again, checking for leaks in an existing pipework drainage. We're looking at better use of the water. So silly little things of in terms of human habit. So if you brush your teeth and leave the tap running, for example.
Very silly habit.
You can, of course, reduce your mains water consumption and usage by just turning the tap off. And there's just, habits like you just have with the way you use your water, just be slightly more mindful about wasting it and just turning taps off and trying to reuse water where you can. The next thing, which is kind of in line with what one of the outlooks that graph support, is the reuse of water. So this is initially, from a graph standpoint, is rainwater harvesting. So this is, of course, capturing rainwater and then reusing it back into the property for certain appliances and applications, along with garden irrigation and so on. And then you've got grey water recycling and black water recycling. Now, these are slightly more special in terms of really treating the water. So this is taking the water which is, for example, disposed from your dishwasher. It's treating that water so that it can then be reused back into another application. Usually it's garden irrigation. We're on the topic of rainwater harvesting, but with my favourite topic, wastewater treatment, you can, of course, treat black water as well. So if you take the foul water from a property and you treat it to a very high standard through water treatment and disinfection and so on, again, you can reuse that water for garden irrigation. Exactly. So with the reuse, we're very much aiming to try and recycle the water available to us as much as possible. Exactly. The third and final thing, which is slightly more tricky to look at, and it's kind of the third step if you need to look at it, is offsetting. Offsetting is very much supporting other projects outside of your own development. So this could be for charities or for a local community. So some way you can reduce their water demand by implementing similar sorts of solutions we've just discussed. So offsetting is away from your own project, but it can be another outlook should you need to gain additional credits to make your own project water. Exactly. Yeah.
So as you mentioned there is kind of the 3 steps to water neutrality, which is reduce, reuse, offset.
Yes.
And like I say, reduction is more about the mindfulness of the water you're using, but then also I think they're encouraging developers to put more water efficient appliances in place,
exactly,
like water efficient taps,
cisterns, all that sort of stuff. So there's actually newer technologies, new equipment, plumbing equipment you can put into properties which can significantly reduce the water coming out of the tap. So with taps you can have an aerate on it. I think you've posted something like 30% reduction. You can then look at putting like crystals and stuff in your toilet cisterns, which reduces how much water comes through each flushing of your toilet. So there is things to think about to try and reduce water. I mean, when you look at just the development of, I don't want to go to say it's too much, but development of toilets, you now have toilets which you can buy which have 2 flush settings on
half flush and a full flush.
Exactly. Yeah. So again, the reduction of water just through a very simple application of which button you can press. So really is something to look at in terms of the reduced side of things.
And with the offset, and I know we covered it just a bit, but I want to go in more detail on that. It's a lot, like you said, just helping communities and charities, but it is a lot of also council owned buildings as well.
Yeah.
That kind of government owned. And when they offset, they have to then be looking. So developers would have to pay for these council buildings to then be fitted with either reducing products or reusing products.
Yep.
So either water efficient taps, water efficient toilet systems, or paying for, say, a library to have a rainwater harvesting system installed. That's the level they then have to go to in the future.
We do know that certainly on domestic kind of level, it's just with the incorporation of these types of systems, you can reduce a general household's consumption of water by about 100,000 litres per year. So there is significant savings on domestic level. When you start talking about bigger commercial developments, you can really see the scope of how powerful this can be.
Yep. Perfect. That is water neutrality in a nutshell. We dove a bit deeper by going into the how of it and how it can be achieved. And it's very reassuring to see this is being looked at. I know it was sprung upon the industry, really. No one knew it was coming about. It was just one day it was all of a sudden, this is announced. However, it's the right thing to do for the first step forward.
Yeah, for the future generations and really connections into the existing developments, water neutrality is kind of like taking rainwater harvesting really to the next level. Yeah.
Well, that answers that. Thank you, David. So that is water neutrality. And like I mentioned in there, we've got a number of articles on our website all about water neutrality. So if you do have any further questions or want to find out more about it, if you head over to graphuk.co.uk, go to our blog, and there's some articles all about water neutrality that you can read up on there. So thank you for that, David. Now is time for our favourite section.
Your favourite section.
Our favourite section. It's in the news. So we've got a number of news stories that we want to share with you and talk about, all about rainwater harvesting. So our wonderful assistants in the hot seat are going to just pull them up on screen for you now. The first one is from Southern Water. It's a news story, which we mentioned on about schemes like water neutrality that are helping people to be more conscious with their water. This was rolled out in Southern Water in a town where they're now offering more households water butts. And as we've mentioned on previous editions of Rainwater Research, installing a water butt is very much the first step along the journey for people to be more water conscious.
Yes.
And to see this is just another good thing. To see like the government and councils offering these homes water butts helps people to be more water conscious.
I mean, it's kind of a silly thing, but really, even if these are like pre-installed into newer developments, if someone really wasn't thinking about water butts and saving water before, having that visual thing in front of them, it clocks them, doesn't it? To really think, hang on a minute, this is something that I should be looking into a bit more.
And it's like what happened last summer with the drought. We experienced it here that we have a massive uptake in water butt interest and rainwater harvesting interest because there was very much a lack of rainfall, which is quite the funny story because people only want rainwater products once there's no rain. They don't preempt the potential of being without rain for a long period of time. But I believe this is down in one, I think it's the Isle of Wight where they're bringing this in. And it just allows people to be more conscious of saving water, reusing rainwater as much as possible. And I think most councils have these in place already, I do believe. So if you want to kind of start to save water and start receiving the benefits, then maybe find out if your local council can give you a free water butt. If not, and if you want a very stylish water butt, you can go to the Graph UK shop. Where we've got a whole range of water butts. Which is your favourite?
My favourite water butt, goodness me. I quite like the Natura tanks personally.
Oh, that's a good shout. Yeah, that is up there. A classic and the all-time great is the Antique Amphora. I think that's a lot of people's favourite, but I do get what you mean. Natura. I really like the Linus.
Oh, really?
With the vertical lines, because the Natura's got the horizontal waves, but I like the straightness of the vertical lines.
Okay.
I don't know why. I just find that really sleek and stylish. Linus is one of my favourite. That's a guilty pleasure. But like I said, we have a number of water butts on graphukshop.co.uk. So if you want to learn more about how you can save water and really start to understand the benefits, even if it is just for garden irrigation, then head over there and you can grab yourself one. So next is from a bit of a positive story to a bit more of a negative one. And as we mentioned just a few minutes ago, that last summer we had quite a massive drought. There, in fact, fun fact of the day, there are 2 counties that still have hosepipe bans because of the drought, and that is Cornwall and I believe Devon. Because officially the UK is still in a drought, even till I think spring this year potentially, because what they measure it on is water reservoirs not being filled to another level. So we've got a new another story that we want to share with you guys that's a bit more how should I say, daunting, rather than quite positive. So I found this the other day, and they believe that England in particular faces the threat of another drought this summer. So this was published a few weeks ago. Obviously, we didn't pick up last time, but now this is something that is worth looking at. So as many of you know, we had a drought in the UK, and actually it's still, there's some parts of England that are still in a drought. As it says on there, most of the parts come back in mid-December with some reservoir levels well above, or some reservoirs still well below normal levels, which means, as I mentioned, some parts of the UK is still in a drought, which is quite, I wouldn't say worrying, but people forget about it.
It is kind of out of mind, yeah.
Because we've had months of rainfall, but the actual amount of average rainfall has decreased over the last kind of coming years or past years. And last year we had that obscene heat wave, which was the hottest and the driest summer for 50 years. And it kind of brought into light people wanting to reuse water as much as possible, because we saw, like I mentioned earlier, a massive spike in interest for water birds and water saving. But Environment Agency has warned that potentially we're still in a drought and we could face yet another drought this summer.
Yeah, it's out of sight, out of mind, isn't it? So it's something that people really should be mindful of now. Certainly usually in terms of like Easter period, that's where we generally see an influx of sales for the certainly for the water range as spring comes into full swing and people are starting to buy their products. But this is something for really people to consider, certainly for the summer months. So it's good that you brought it to our attention today. So yeah, people can be prepared for it.
And obviously on there it goes into more detail about the leaks that the UK Waterworks is facing, because I think it's in the Thames Water advert you see on TV, where it talks about got the engineers out like up day in up in the day, up in the night, fixing the leaks in the Thames Water network, and they said, "Oh, bringing our Victorian pipework up to the 21st century." I think it's that tagline, and it just shows like our water pipes and solutions were put in place back in Victorian times, and they haven't been updated, and they've never been refurbished or replaced. They've always just done patchwork to replace the leaks, and that is like a constant issue that this is highlighting, is that there are leaks. There's a lot of wastage of water. I think billions upon billions of litres is wasted each year in the UK. And to make things worse, we're facing yet another drought. So for 2 years running, we've faced a very dry summer, which means people need to be a bit more conscious of the water they can collect and reuse.
Yeah, and reduce.
We don't go into that. But yeah, like we mentioned earlier, obviously when we're talking about water neutrality, it's not just rainwater harvesting. They could be even more efficient with their water by installing more water efficient taps, putting their dishwashers on half load. They can put their washing machines on cooler temperatures to use less water, to use less energy as well.
Yeah.
So kind of like we mentioned with the reduced part of water neutrality, it is not only the efficiency of the stuff you have in place, but also the mindfulness and learning to be mindful of what we're using. I mean, it's a bit of a bleak news story. I didn't want to end.
I think you're kind of like bringing home how important
it is. It is. It is very important. And like I said, I didn't want to bring it down on my favorite section of today's session, but it's just very important.
I started low, mate, and then gone high.
I know I should have started this. I'd done this at the start, because then it'll be like, look at Southern Water bringing in these new water butts. I was like, I should have done this at the start. But anyway, if you do want to read that full article, it is on financialtimes.com, and you can read more about the potential drought that the UK may face this summer, which is quite daunting. I don't think I've ever experienced 2 droughts in a row.
You're still young, mate.
I'm still a spring chicken. I'm very much spring chicken. Although, spoiler alert, it's my birthday on this weekend, and I turned 26, which is my last year of mid-20s.
I'm not too sure how you break it up, mate, but
because
you're now closer to 30 than you are 20.
Sure.
But
no, because I figured this out. It's, in my opinion, I think, and it should be universal, is obviously, we'll go for 20. When you're 20, you're basically 20. 21, 22, 23 is early, like 1, 2, 3 is early 20s. 4, 5, 6, mid. 7, 8, 9, late. I'm in my last year of mid-20s.
you just hold on to it for as long
A
as you
year
can.
on Sunday, I'm going to be in my late 20s. Oh, God. We've really ended this section on a downer, haven't we? But anyway, that's it for In the News. Obviously, the main headlines is councils giving out free water butts. The UK can face a drought, and I'm about to go into my late 20s of the year. Oh, God. But anyway, now it's time to answer any questions that have come in during today's live session. So we'll have these pulled up on the screen. So can you use a rainwater harvesting system for agricultural purposes?
Yes, you can. With rainwater harvesting, probably the main outlook for the reusing the rainwater is through agriculture, because there are significant demands on agricultural sites for the application of water. So of course, the more obvious things would be like feeding your livestock and stuff, but of course you've then got all the irrigation of crops, you've got cleaning of vehicles and wash down, and then you can actually use water to refine in some refining processes as well. So in terms of the applications you can use, water is huge, and most of those you can supplement with rainwater. So in an agricultural industry, rainwater harvesting is a huge potential saving for that particular farmer or collective. So that's something that they really should be considering. I would be extremely surprised if most farmers don't use rainwater harvesting already. It's certainly something they should consider doing if they're not, because it's absolutely insane how much it can be. When we talk about domestic rainwater harvesting, we generally say it's up to about 50% you can potentially save. With agriculture, you can go anything from that 50% up to like 80-90%. So the savings are hugely significant. And then that's just in terms of a percentage value. If you think about the amount of water that actually correlates to with a domestic dwelling versus an agricultural, that is a business that's using multiple times more amount of water. So with agricultural developments, rainwater harvesting is a really, really super idea to implement as much as you can.
I mean, you touched on in the end in terms of uses for agricultural purposes, but not only is it like irrigating the crops, it's any outhouses they may have for the kind of cleaning and toilet facilities of the staff. They've then got water troughs for any animals and feed that they may have. Like you say, cleaning down vehicles. There's so many applications on an agricultural thing.
On the site for rainwater.
I was reading a news story the other day about they're encouraging farmers to look into this. And there's a farm association, I think in East Anglia, and I think in terms of rainfall, last year they've had less rainfall than parts of Greece. That just shows how little and how dry and arid the farms were in East Anglia. And they're looking for ways they can conserve water. And obviously, rainwater harvesting is one of the plenty of options they have.
Yeah, exactly.
So to answer by that, yes, you can. And then the next question that we've had come in during today is, how do I know what size water butt I need?
Do you want to leave with this one, or do you want me to go?
Well, yeah.
Because I know that you've implemented a tool on our own webpage which kind of looks at this in a bit more detail. Yes. I would generally look at this from a very rainwater harvesting point of view, which might not be the full scope of what a customer should look for.
There's a rule of thumb.
Okay.
And I'll show you. I'll tell you. So with a water butt, you want at least 100 days worth of water supply, right?
Okay, sounds like a lot, but go for it.
But how long was the driest period in the summer?
Well, I'm hoping I'm going to, by you asking the question, I bet it was more than 100 days.
So when you think about it, 100 days is just over 3 months.
3 months, yeah.
Yeah. So if we did that period with the hosepipe ban, I think it started about July and it ran till about September, October time in some places. But then obviously September we started to experience rainfall. So if you want 100 days worth of storage, you need to figure out what size watering can you have, because most gardens obviously use a water can to water their garden. So if you have, use this as an example, a 1 litre watering can, you need to figure out how many times or how many 1 litre watering cans it takes to water your garden a day. So say you've got in my garden, I don't have a garden, but say garden at home, it takes me 3 1 litre watering can to basically water my garden with, which means I use 3 litres of water a day.
Yeah.
And obviously you times that by 100 to give you
your 300 litre water butt.
Yeah, to give you your 100 days of supply, you therefore need a 300 litre water butt.
Okay, because when we think about water butts in terms of their volume, and we do compare that to rainwater harvesting, we know from rainwater harvesting that the yield is generally very easy to achieve, certainly to fill a water butt. You probably just need to have one rainfall event and you've got a full water butt. So that 100 days is really easy to capture if you have something the water butt in place. That's just something to bear in mind. Just building on what you said, I think you also probably want, with your 300 litre water butt, you kind of want to also consider where you're going to put that container. So think about the size and the shape. I mean, with Graph, we have loads of decorative water butts, so colour might also be something that you want to consider as well. But there's no point in buying yourself a 1,000 litre container. Firstly, if you say you're not going to need that much water. And secondly, if you've got no place to put the container, which is going to be kind of discreet and out of the way. I mean, you might want it as a featured piece in your gardens if it is one of the decorative style. But if you've got a great big container, you might want to kind of hide it out of the way and then use it when required. But I think location of where you're going to put it is also something that people should be considering as well.
Yeah, and like with one great example is one of our most popular ones is the slim stone wall tank. That's 300 litres. Obviously, would give you 100 days to supply if you had a 3 litre watering can. However, the height of it, I believe, is about 1.8. And the actual width, I believe, is about 600 millimeters. So, like say about location, is you can fit this very slim water butt in a very tight space. And if you obviously have a tight space in your garden, you can have a very slim water butt, but still capture a high yield of rainwater to reuse in your garden.
Yeah.
So that is my rule of thumb. Figure out to give you 100 days of water supply. Obviously, it doesn't have to be 100 days. Basically, take your watering can, see how many times it takes you to water your garden, and then times that by however many days you need your days, and that will give you your liters of water in storage that you will need for your water butt.
Yeah,
that's my rule of thumb. I haven't trademarked here or copyrighted or anything just yet, but that is the rule of thumb and what you should go about using. So then, next question that we've had come in during today. Can you retrofit a rainwater harvest system to an existing building? I think this is very relevant to what we spoke about with water neutrality.
It does lean into it somewhat, because certainly when we were talking about offsetting, this again, rainwater harvesting, adding on to an existing development is a way to offset potentially for something else that you're working on. But to bring it back kind of more in line with retrofitting, it is something that you can certainly achieve. You want to really consider what you want to use the rainwater harvesting for. If it's just going to be for outside irrigation and cleaning purposes, of course, that's a very straightforward system to install, because you're just going to take the water from your rainwater harvesting tank and then just plumb it to like an outside bib tap or some sort of extraction point, which is going to be relatively available for when you want to draw water from the tank. So that's relatively easy to install and then pull water from the tank. If you're then going to if you're considering bringing that water back in to support something like a washing machine, or you're looking for toilets, retrofitting is slightly more tricky because you've got existing plumbing in place, and you really need to take into consideration things like cross-contamination between mains water and rainwater. So it's still plausible, but there are certain things that you do need to look at, so you're not going to accidentally contaminate the mains water line with the rainwater. So it might just be that you decide to supplements like an outside toilet in an outbuilding, or if you've got your washing machine in your garage, for example, just plumbing it in there, then you can isolate the mains water supply coming in, so it's purely off your rainwater system, then that's the way to do it. With rainwater harvesting systems, we've discussed many times before, they're always going to prioritize the use of rainwater first, and then you could incorporate a mains water backup supply if you wanted to. And the activation of that is kind of controlled via some sort of float sensor from the tank. So there are options to, of course, use the rainwater for other plants in the property, but you need to be a little bit mindful about cross-contamination. And in terms of, retrofitting rainwater harvesting systems, just go for it. It's a super way, certainly to support the outside irrigation options, whether it be for just or cleaning your car, whatever it may be. Retrofitting, even if it's just a small tank. We talked about water butts earlier today, where you can get relatively smaller sizes, say 300-500 litres. Small rainwater harvesting systems generally start at around about 1,500 litres. So even with a small tank, if you're just going to use it for our garden irrigation, that can supplement your supply by anything from like 25-30% of your mains water. So it can have a huge impact in terms of the environmental benefits and potentially saving on your mains water bill as well.
Yeah, and I think we're very, not just to summarise as again, so if offsetting retrofitting is very easy if you're just doing it for garden irrigation and just outdoor cleaning purposes. But it's just that slow or difficult if you want to use the capabilities of rainwater harvesting for more applications
in the property. Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Yeah. So thank you. I believe that answers that. I don't think we've had any more. Have we had any more questions come in? Nope. I've had a shake of the head to say that's it for today. So thank you, David, for your time today.
Thanks for having me.
No, I think we're getting back to the groove. That was, I would say, our best rainwater research yet.
Oh, I'm glad you with your input as well, mate. It was a nice to and fro.
I was the first time I answered a question from the Q&As. We're growing people again somewhere. But anyway, thank you for taking your time out of your day to watch today's live session. And thank you, David, once again for your time. And thank you to the people in the background for doing the controls. They're going to give us a wave. Yeah, they're giving us a wave. So yeah, thank you once again. Thank you once again for coming down and watching. And we'll see you next week for David's favorite topic for a wastewater wisdom live session. So have a great week. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you next week. See you later.